For the last 5 years, I've played 1d4 in not only all of my online games, but my classical games too. It's given me an incredible understanding and appreciation for positional chess, but I couldn't help but think that I fell behind in my tactical play because of it as well. So around 8 months ago, I learnt the Ruy Lopez among some other openings that I would need for a full 1e4 repertoire. And after that, I played 1e4 exclusively on chess.com for 30 days to see what I could find. In today's video, we'll be looking over all of the variations in my repertoire. We'll look at my win rates, and at the end of the video, we'll look at one of the best games that I played with 1e4. I should also mention that all of the games played in today's video were on a authorized speedrun account by chess.com. All of the players that I played games against will have their rating refunded. So I do not recommend that you do the same thing unless you have an authorized account. A good place to start off though is what elo did I actually reach? And right now, my speedrun account sits at 2,187 elo with a peak of 2,194 elo. I probably could have gotten a little bit higher. I think I could have gotten to 2,250 elo, but I felt that a peak rating wasn't a great representation of how well you actually played with an open. An elo of around 2,200 felt like an accurate representation of how well I played with 1e4. For comparison, my main account on chess.com sits at 2,286 elo with a peak rating of 2,365 elo. So my repertoire of 1e4 was only around 100 elo worse than my repertoire with 1d4. It's also worth mentioning that with the black pieces, against 1e4 I would play the Caro-Kann Defense, and against 1d4 I would play the Queen's Gambit Declined. These black openings were kind of just a control group. They're the openings that I would play on my main account, and if I ever make this a series and learn something like the English, I'll use the same two openings so we can have comparable results. The elo on this account was also initially set at 900, which in hindsight made no sense because I don't think anyone was actually doubting that I would make it past 1,000 elos, so next time I do this, I'll probably set it to 2,000. But that does mean that a lot of the data from this account needs to be refined because we shouldn't be including data from our games against really low-rated players. With all that being said, I could sit here and yap about how e4 made me feel, but I feel like it would make more sense to categorize everything by the openings that I played. Every response from black will make white play differently, so categorizing it like we did with the Caro-Kann video makes a lot of sense. If you do want to learn some of the openings that we play in this video though, you might also be interested in today's sponsor, ChessMind.ai. Most course websites obsess over memorizing hundreds of opening lines, but ChessMind is built around something different, understanding positions and not just remembering moves. The goal isn't to learn more theory, it's to know what to do when theory runs out. That's why the courses on ChessMind only take around an hour to complete, because the priority isn't on memorization, it's positional understanding. For just $7 per month, you guys can unlock over 50 courses on ChessMind, plus access to their AI coach, personalized puzzles, and training videos hosted by Chilean Grandmaster Maurizio Flores. And with my link in the description, you guys can get 20% off your purchase too. But now let's look at all of the opening variations. Now the first thing that I want to note is I am absolutely not an expert on e4 theory, so if you guys think that you know better than me in the comments, you probably do. This is like the one video where you guys actually probably know a lot more than I do. I would say I know a lot about Ruy Lopez theory, French defense theory, and Caro-Kann theory. That's only because the French defense and the Caro-Kann also come up against d4, and I spent a lot of time studying the Ruy Lopez. But for the rest of these openings, I am very out of my depth. I was kind of just making it up as I go along. For a lot of these openings, I actually didn't have much theory, or I had a very shallow understanding of it. And we're gonna start off by looking at the Petrov, where I had 2 wins and 3 losses against players rated 2,100 plus. So, you know, people don't play the Petrov too often. Of course, the Petrov starts with e4, e5, and knight f3, and then knight f6. What's interesting about this is that even at my level, obviously the Petrov is more of a classical chess opening. Not so many people play it online because it's not very interesting. So I don't have any data on the actual Petrov, because after I take, they never take back. They always play the Stafford Gambit. Thank you, Eric Rosen, for this one. And you know, I just didn't know the theory to it. I knew, I've briefly studied the Stafford Gambit, which is kind of funny considering I don't play e4. And when I actually studied the Stafford Gambit, this was like 3 years ago when I had no intention of making this video. So I knew that the refutation was, I knew that you could play d3. I knew that bishop e2 was the next idea. But after h5, I was consistently playing the wrong move here, and if I knew the right move, I probably would have gotten into a lot better positions. So I was playing this move bishop e3, which isn't a bad move. It gets you some decent positions because the idea is takes, and now you know, that there is just nothing, right? There is nothing. You can go here, but I'm gonna take, you can take back. I'm gonna swing my queen in, block any checks. The problem is, I guess, that black gets long castling here, so these lines are not optimal. You are still a little bit better. You can see that the engine thinks you're +1, but I was letting black have too much. I was letting them off the hook here. I could have just instead played something like c3, and now you can see the advantage is +2. I think from this point on, bishop e2 is a very intuitive refutation to the Stafford Gambit. I think there are other ones that are a little bit trickier and allow black some kind of some tricks, but this bishop e2 one is maybe one of the boring refutations. I tend to think that if your opponent plays a gambit, you have the right to play a boring refutation because you're up a pawn. But this one, you know, there's not really much that black can do, right? You're gonna play d4, you're gonna play knight d2, you can castle short as well. There isn't really an attack going on here. And as long, I mean, especially in rapid chess, you're probably going to defend these kind of positions. Let's just fast forward to what might happen in a position like this. You can appreciate how, you know, black is in a little bit of trouble here. Not only are they down the pawn, you could cash in already with a move like d4 and win a full piece. But yeah, there are plenty of ways to continue this. This is how I should have done it. I was playing it incorrectly, like I said, and getting these kind of subpar positions, decent positions. All in all, I don't think the Stafford Gambit is a difficult opening to play against. I think that's kind of what I want to do with these openings. I want to go through them, what I played, what I should have played, and then kind of give you my final thoughts on it. I think it's a fun opening to play against. I don't know about the Petrov. I've studied a little bit of Petrov theory just because I've looked at a bunch of Grandmaster games. That kind of looks a little bit boring, even though in the Petrov, technically you end up with d4, d5 structures, which suits me anyway because I'm a d4 player. So even if we do get into those boring variations in the Petrov, I probably wouldn't mind them anyway. So I don't think anything in the Petrov is a problem. I don't think the Stafford Gambit's a problem. I think it's very enjoyable to play against. I didn't have the best win rate against this, but you know, if I played for 30 more days, I would probably have a very good win rate against it, knowing that I need to play c3. But yeah, I think it just came up so infrequently that I didn't even think to change what I was doing. I was seeing that, okay, bishop e3 is fine, and I don't even know if I reviewed some of these games that I was losing with bishop e3. But no, I think the Petrov is absolutely fine, not a problem in this repertoire at all, and something that I really enjoyed playing against. Now we can look at the Philidor, which is kind of a boring looking opening, but isn't actually a boring opening at all, which is a big mistake that I made. So the Philidor comes after e4, e5, knight f3, and d6, which obviously just looks like a very, very passive opening. They're blocking in their bishop, but the higher rated you get, the more you'll find out when your opponent does something like this, which is an inherently slow move, and they block out one of their bishops, it kind of leaves things behind. It leaves things for you to punish, and that is exactly what you're supposed to do in the Philidor, which I didn't really know until I kind of started making this video and looked at all of the analysis for it. Again, this is not an opening that I played too often. I had 3 wins and 3 losses versus players 2,100 and above. So I definitely didn't struggle in this opening, but I think I could have had a positive win rate if I knew the right way to go about playing this opening. So I was playing d4, e takes d5, and the bird gambit, I think it's called. Yeah, the bird gambit. And I was kind of treating this like a Scotch game, and the Scotch gambit was the first opening that I ever learnt with e4. So I was kind of playing it like this, where you get some early activity and you gambit a pawn. I thought that this was a nice way to kind of spice up the Philidor. But as it turns out, you know, gambiting a pawn like this actually doesn't help too much because there's just no weaknesses. When your opponents play very solid moves like this, even though their position slows down a whole bunch, it tends to be a very solid position. You can think of something like the Scandinavian, think of something like the Caro-Kann, very difficult openings to break down. So after something like knight f6, it's actually very difficult. You need to go ahead and play a slow move yourself with something like h3. Yeah, and I had a 3 wins, 3 losses, 50% win rate against this opening. What I would do if I had the chance to do it again was actually go for this line, where you take in the center. I thought taking in the center seemed like a slow thing to do because you're recapturing, which is why I kind of avoided doing it to begin with, but you actually get these really solid lines. And I want to go through them. You get like knight f6, knight c3 defending the pawn, developing a piece as well. You'll notice that they don't really have a bunch of good squares for their pieces because they don't have any central control. And, you know, we're covering a lot of ground in the center, even though we did play a slightly slow move. So they've got to play something like bishop e7, which is played in 20% of games above 1800 elo. And then you've just got natural moves. White has all the natural moves. Look at all these moves that we can play. We can play queen d2, castle long, castle short. We can launch some pawns. We've got so many options. It's really great. So in this position, you should play bishop f4, castles, queen d2, and you get this really, really appealing, really attractive opposite side castling game which is just something that I would love to play. So again, if I got another 30 days to play e4, which, you know, if you guys want me to in the comments below, I would be happy to make a video of playing e4 for 30 more days, knowing what I know now. I think I would enjoy this. I think I would have a positive win rate because you get something like f3, g4, g5, h4, h5, and it's just an opposite side frenzy, right? These games would be so fun to play. They're advantageous for white. I see no reason to kind of be worried about the Philidor. So if you're wanting to play e4 and you're thinking the Philidor might be a problem, I don't know who thinks that. I don't think a person in the history of chess has ever thought that the Philidor would be a problem, but it's really a fun opening to play against. White gets everything that they want, and you should have a decent win rate against it. Of course, my win rate was balanced only because I was kind of playing a weird line in the Philidor. It doesn't come up too often. If we go all the way back here, d6 is played in 12% of games actually, so you know, not too infrequently now that I'm looking at it, but I only had 6 games that I played against the Philidor. Really enjoyed playing against the Philidor, and really nothing to complain about with the repertoire that I could have played with this knight takes d4 line. So the next opening that we will look at is the meat and potatoes of this video, which is the Ruy Lopez. I have an entire Ruy Lopez repertoire up on this channel. It is completely free. You guys can go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description, and it's kind of what led me to want to make this video because I really like the Ruy Lopez. I've seen a lot of grandmasters play it. It looks incredibly fun to play. And it is so fun to play. We'll go through the theory first. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, which is the most common opening in chess, and bishop b5. Bishop c4 is Italian, also popular. There is also the first opening that I ever learnt, which is the Scotch game, which you can play like this. But I went for bishop b5 because I've seen a lot of grandmasters use it. It's probably the most played opening at the grandmaster level, and I had 13 wins and 6 losses with it against players rated 2100 and above. So you can see when I'm playing openings that I actually do know the theory for, I have a very positive win rate against really high rated players. You know, 13 wins and 6 losses, what is that, a 66% win rate? Probably 6-7% win rate if I'm being really funny about it. No, but we'll go through all of the variations. Of course, the Morphy defense is by far the most common variation, but there are a lot of sub variations that you do need to be knowledgeable in. I say you do need to be knowledgeable in, I think they're very intuitive. I think all of the little tries that black has are very intuitive. As long as you're very familiar with the Morphy defense and all of the main lines around it, you should be fine. So obviously you play bishop a4. You could also play the exchange variation. I don't see why anyone would. Apparently it's played in 25% of games over 1800 on Lichess. I assume that's just with people that don't want to learn theory. But no, bishop a4 is by far a better choice in my opinion. This taking for no reason just seems unplayable to me. I know unplayable is a very harsh way to put it, but I would never want to play like that. So after bishop a4, they're most likely going to play b5. They can play, and a lot of people do play knight f6 first, but eventually they do just throw in this move b5 anyway. In almost every game I've played, they throw in this move b5 to activate their bishop. So these kind of transpose into one another, but if knight f6 is played in this position, I won 4 games and lost 1, so a 75% win rate against players 2100 and above. So we'll go to this variation though because it happens anyway. With b5, you obviously want to play knight b3. They can never play knight a5 because it hangs the pawn in the center. Even though they are winning the bishop, they are going to lose a pawn, so this is no good. You also don't have to take, you can play castles, and this is just a slow 2-move kind of sequence anyway that doesn't help anyone. So usually they will play knight f6, and I like to play castles. They can't really take in the center. There's a lot of reasons not to. We can go over the line. You know, you can see the evaluation shoots up to +1 because of rook e1, and now there's a lot of pieces in the way. I think this would be different if they had not played b5. So we can actually go back, which might be a nice thing to look at. I think we'll look at this anyway, where we can see, okay, if knight f6 and we castle, for example, they can take here. If we go rook e1 now, there is knight c5. So it's a little bit different again, where you can see, okay, everything makes a difference. The placement of the bishop does make a big difference because now it's hanging. You wouldn't want to play rook e1 in this position. You would want to play something like d4, and this would transpose into the open Ruy Lopez. But we'll get to that later. We're going to look at all of the variations. We have this move b5, bishop b3, knight f6, and castles. They're not going to take in the center here. I think 50% of the time, so very likely they're going to play the closed Ruy Lopez, which I find is just the most common, and it's also the most most fun to play against, in my opinion. I actually didn't like playing against the open Ruy Lopez. I think it was mainly because I had a little bit of a lack of theoretical understanding for it. I think I need to go back and look at the variations a little bit more, because I think that it's such a sharp opening. When people say that the Ruy Lopez is a very theoretical opening, I don't think they mean the closed Ruy Lopez at all. I think that's a very intuitive variation. Actually, I think open Ruy Lopez is the only difficult theoretical variation in the entire Ruy Lopez. It was the only one I struggled with, so I didn't really enjoy playing against it, but it didn't come up too often anyway. So I would always play rook e1 in this position. You can play d4 if you want, but I like to play rook e1, I like to play c3, and I like to play d4. So we can see d6. The inclusion of d6 now, by the way, defends this pawn a second time, so knight a5 is now possible. So whenever this happens, you always want to play c3. If they play knight a5, now you can tuck your bishop back into c2. So now usually they'll castle. You can play h3. This is the Keres variation, I believe, stopping the bishop from ever getting to g4. I think it's okay to let your bishop get to g4. You know, there are variations where you can play a4 here, so a lot of flexibility. I think that's the main thing that drew me so far into the Ruy Lopez, is there's just so much flexibility in what you can do and where you want to play. You know, you can strike for d4, you could play d3 if you want. You can always reroute, do this long Ruy Lopez reroute. You can play a4 at a lot of times in games. You can play d4, d5. There are just so many ways that you can play it. And what's better is that you're keeping all of the pieces on the board. There is almost no Ruy Lopez variation where white is forced to trade off a bunch of pieces. You get to play with so many. So I usually play the Keres variation. You might think, oh, bishop e3 is a decent idea, but after takes, you get some really good variations with d4, which happen quite a lot. This is called the Kolmov variation. And apparently after e takes d5, white wins 52% of the time, black wins 42% of the time. So the data backs up that this is a pretty good opening for white. We'll move on though to some sub variations. We have 3d6, which is the Steinitz defense. I typically think that this just transposes. I had 3 wins and 2 losses. All of these sub-variations are going to have very limited data, so I'm not sure how much I would trust it being a, what is that? That is like a 55-60% win rate against the Steinitz. It largely transposes anyway. After something like castles, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, rook e1, b5, you can see how this is kind of just transposing into what we looked at already. Although bishop e3 does allow something like this, now we can sneak in this move d4, and it's actually not so bad for white. Even though we are allowing them to take this, we're opening up a file, and there is a lot of compensation for something like this. We're also threatening to take on e5 now, so there's a lot of differences in this, but largely I would say that, you know, unless they play knight a5, this is going to transpose into something that we've kind of looked at before. And I didn't have any problems with this whatsoever. I thought the Steinitz defense, or Steinitz deferred, whatever you want to call it, it was kind of tame. It didn't really do anything that bothered me at all, so we can look at another variation. We have this move knight d4, the bird variation. How often is this played actually? Probably not. 4% of games it's played. Not a variation that I would be worried about at all. You just kind of take in the center, take some castles, and then you play some chess, and you try to, you know, win this at some point. You play d3, you play f4, and the game kind of plays itself in a way. I know it's like a very, very watered down explanation of what the bird variation actually does, but to be honest, I couldn't even tell you what black is trying to achieve in this opening. I guess there are variations where they play g6 and they try to hold on to this pawn. So let's say d3, they might play bishop g7, but then we get f4 and we're coming with f5, and I just don't see a real reason to play this variation as black. What was my win rate? I had, I didn't put my win rate down. I had 1 win and 1 draw against the bird, so really limited data. I'm not sure how many I would have won if I had, you know, the bird variation 100 times, but not an opening that I struggled with at all. We can now look at the Caro-Kann defense, which is knight ge7, and I typically think, like the Karpov variation in the Caro-Kann, I think something like the Caro-Kann is just for players who don't want to commit their pawn structure, who are very comfortable in just playing with a triangle formation, and they don't really want to commit anything major. So after knight ge2, I had 2 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. I would just kind of play castles. And, you know, I think I would just be lying if I said I knew much more about the Caro-Kann other than just kind of play it as what feels natural. You know, you might get a move like a6. Okay, let's see, a6, bishop a4, b5 is the most common. You're kind of transposing a little bit. You're never really transposing because this this knight is over here, but you'll get something like knight g6. You can play a4. A lot of the ideas kind of correspond. You can even play it a little bit inaccurately and play something like c4 if you really want to be familiar with how this opening works, but I really don't see a reason to be playing the Caro-Kann Defense. It doesn't seem like it does anything great for black. It kind of just, again, you can look at the evaluation, it goes to +1 here, near enough. So as long as you know decent theory, again, the Caro-Kann, we should kind of look back. This doesn't happen very often. Caro-Kann Defense happens in 4% of games, so not really an opening to worry about, I would say. But no, it doesn't really kind of present any new threats. I would say most of these Ruy Lopez variations, none of them really present anything that should worry white a whole lot. You can kind of operate in the same way no matter what they do. So again, the Caro-Kann Defense, not really a great response to the Ruy Lopez. What I thought was a decent variation to play with the black pieces was actually just the Berlin Defense with knight f6. I had 1 win and 1 loss, so not really a great sample size to kind of see how many games I would have won with this variation, but I thought it was a very good variation because it kind of stops white from getting the plans that they would want and would get in their other variations. You don't really have time for c3 anymore because there is a pawn under attack, so you kind of need to just go for d3 straight away. Now d3 straight away, or you could play castles, by the way. This just results in the Berlin draw. You get something like e4, you get d4, I think is the Berlin draw, knight d6, you get d takes e5, knight takes, and you get a4, and this essentially leads to the Berlin draw where you'll get takes, 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 takes. Here, takes, queen here, and then you get this kind of perpetual check over here. So you do get the Berlin draw. You're not going to get the Berlin draw. Let's not pretend that we're grandmasters. We are absolutely not going to get a Berlin draw. And I think there was even, I remember Daniel Naroditsky spent a lot of time trying to prove that the Berlin Defense was not a drawn opening. There are a lot of winning chances for the white side, and especially at this rating. I mean, that position that we just looked at with this perpetual check, if it reaches this position, this is probably not going to be a draw in your game. Somebody is going to find a way to lose it, so it's definitely not, don't write the Ruy Lopez off because of this opening. You can also play d3, which is what I played in my games. d3 just kind of allows you to play a very positional opening, kind of like an Italian in a way, where the bishop is just on b5 in this case, but you've got very stable central control. So I know for people that play the Ruy Lopez that really like the attacking dynamics of it, you might hate the Berlin Defense because it kind of just makes the game boring, but coming from a d4 player who has played d4 all their life, this opening seems fine. It seems like maybe e4 players are a little bit spoiled for how interesting some of their openings are. This doesn't seem like a big problem to me. I liked playing against the Berlin Defense. It also doesn't happen too often. For example, 17% of games they'll play the Berlin Defense, so 1 in every 5 games you'll play against the Berlin, so it won't happen too often. And I think that the games that you actually get, the kind of play that you get, is absolutely fine. So as a whole, I didn't think that there was anything to be worried about as far as black's refutations for the Berlin Defense goes, or for the Ruy Lopez goes. What's funny, when I was studying the Ruy Lopez, and I think I actually mentioned it in the video that I made with a full Ruy Lopez repertoire, I think that the refutation for the Ruy Lopez is just to play the Sicilian Defense. I think that it's a really good opening. It's my favorite opening with e4 so far. I don't know too many of them admittedly, but it's a really fun opening to play. I would definitely recommend the Ruy Lopez to anyone that's considering learning e4. The open Ruy Lopez is a little bit theoretical, but apart from that, I didn't really think there was too much theory. I think that something like the Sicilian Defense was a lot more theoretical than the Ruy Lopez was, at least at my level. Of course, that will change at the Grandmaster level, but it was a really fun opening to play. I didn't really find any of black's responses too difficult to deal with, so we can move on to the next variation. Now, the next 2 openings I'm only going to brush over very quickly because I don't feel like it's a fair representation, because I play the French defense in my d4 repertoire. For example, if you play d4 and someone plays e6, this is the Horitz defense, you're gonna play e4 and they're gonna transpose into a French. So as a d4 player, you probably need to know theory anyway for the French defense, and the theory that I play, probably I do want to learn the theory, different lines in the French defense. I'm not sure if the lines that I play are the best openings or the best lines, but I played the advanced French. I know a lot of people are probably screaming at me right now saying how bad the advanced French is, but considering I play the advanced Caro-Kann as well, it makes a lot of sense for the 2 openings to intertwine and have common ideas. And for anyone telling me the advanced French is bad, I got 5 wins and 1 loss against players 2100 rated or above. So I did have decent success with this opening. After c5, c3, knight c6, knight f3, and queen b6, I played the Paulson, no, sorry, queen b6 is the Paulson attack. I played ace a3, which is the main line. The idea is black obviously wants to come and add some more pressure to this pawn, but before they can, you're going to play something like b4. You're going to force the issue and ask them what they want to do with their pawn. If they take like this, now after a move like knight f5, you can play something like bishop e3, and you don't have to play it in this order, of course, but you can play something like bishop e3, and suddenly there is no weakness on b2 anymore, so the bishop is free to roam up to e3. I think the way that I play it, well, in this study at least, I have them trading off, so I think it transposes anyway, and we get this kind of position, which is not perfect, by the way. I am absolutely aware it's not perfect, but your opponents are never going to play this perfectly, and after bishop d3, you get a really nice attack, and I really like these positions, and we'll see also how my Caro-Kann repertoire kind of goes into a similar direction, but I don't see what's not to love in these kind of openings. I mean, you've got this open file, or half open file, you've got this fully open file, you've got this really easy reroute into this c5 square, you've got a bishop that's staring at h7. Your only problem in these kind of positions is when black plays f6, you need to know how to respond to it. In this case, you can kind of just ignore it, play castles, after takes, you can take with the knight here, after takes, you can do this check, so you have to be resourceful, you have to know the resources, you cannot play this because you will lose to this, queen gets in with check, so you have to be careful with f6. That's the only thing that I would say about this opening, but if you do know how to manage the move f6, you should be absolutely fine. This is such a fun way to play it, such a simple way as well. Again, you can probably tell that I don't want to learn a whole bunch of theory. We'll get to another chapter in just a second, which proves that more, that I don't want to learn too much theory. But yeah, I had a really good time playing against the French defense with this kind of setup. Let me know in the comments below what you would recommend against the French, because I would like to learn something else. I just don't know what people play, what people recommend. I would also like to learn the French defense from the black side, which, learning it from the white side would help me learn it from the black side as well. So I do intend on learning both, so let me know in the comments. But yeah, I think that, if you want to play e4 and you're worried about the French defense, don't be. A good French defense player is very difficult to play against, by the way. Someone that knows their French defense theory will be difficult to play against. I think that this advanced French kind of setup kind of helps with that as well, because you kind of get them out of theory as well. With this b4 idea, the theory kind of goes out the window because there's not as much for black to be doing, because you've forfeited some of the advantage. You get people out of book very early. So, if you're worried about the theory, this might be a good option, kind of to take them out of theory. But yeah, on a whole, I wouldn't shy away from playing against the French defense at all. I think it's or at least the advanced variation is very easy to kind of understand, and you get very good positions, very good attacking positions as the white side as well. And again, you can tell that I really like these advanced kind of setups, whether I'm playing with e4 or whether I'm playing with d4. Very fun to play against. And we can kind of skip straight onto the Caro-Kann, which has, you can imagine what variation I play against the Caro-Kann. But I have an even more impressive win rate here. And again, I play this as d4 as well. If you play d4, they play c6. I'm not going to play the Slav. I'm going to play into the main line, because I played the Caro-Kann for 5 damn years, so I know exactly what to do. And what's funny is I have a really good repertoire against the advanced variation, so I kind of know what black wants to achieve. So we'll go through the opening. Of course, it transposes the same as it would with d4, and we'll look at two variations. First, we'll look at c5, which I have a very good win rate against, and this is called the Botvinnik Carls, by the way, moving the pawn twice. This is what Gotham Chess recommends on his YouTube. A lot of other people, I think Alex Benzea also recommends this. I don't. I think that if you're under 2000 ELO, sure, play this. I think if you're over 2000 ELO, play the variation that we'll look at next. But after d takes c5, this is kind of refuted in a way. I don't want to say it's refuted. People got angry at me last time I said it was refuted. But if they play knight c6, you play something like f4, holding onto the pawn. If they play something like e6 now, or yeah, e6 blocking in their pawn, we are going to play something like bishop e3. They have to play d4, bishop back, and here. And now they've just got a very weak pawn on d4 that you can go out and attack in a lot of ways. You want to play something like knight d2 to play knight b3, and your whole game plan is basically win this pawn and win the game. That's your entire game plan, essentially. If they don't play knight c6 and instead they play the correct move of e6, it's a little bit trickier, but you'll play something like bishop e3 all the same, and after something like knight d7, which forks both of the pawns, you'll play bishop b5, and in a lot of cases, black does not get that pawn back for a long time. They have to work really hard to get that pawn back. I'm not so well drilled in this kind of theory. I don't think this even happened to me once in the 30 days that I was playing e4, but this is a very good response to the Botvinnik Carls, and I think, if you learn a little bit of theory to it, spend an hour looking into the theory of the Botvinnik Carls, you should be able to play it with no problems. I think the only reason that the Botvinnik Carls is technically good is because it relies on people not knowing theory as the white side. So, if you do know the theory, it's actually a very easy opening to play against. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the Botvinnik Carls at all, but what about the main line? What about bishop f5, which is the main line of the advanced variation, which is actually what I recommend if you are the black pieces and you are over 2000 elo. When people start learning the theory to the advanced Caro-Kann as the white side, you will want to start playing the main line, where you can also play c5 at some stages later on, but you won't play it immediately. So in this variation, you'll want to play knight f3, e6, bishop e2 is the next move, and then c5 comes from black. So you can see the same kind of ideas exist in the advanced variation. This is called the short variation. I don't know why I started doing this on this account. I swear I don't do this on my main account. Well, obviously I don't play against the Caro-Kann too much with my d4 repertoire, but I started playing with c3, which is a fine move, by the way. But after knight c6, I kind of just my Caro-Kann repertoire and my French repertoire kind of morphed together, and I started playing a3 to go for this b4 idea, which is not bad, by the way. I think it's fine. It's led me to a lot of interesting games, and again, I've got you can't fight with the numbers. I have 8 wins and 1 loss versus 2100 plus rated players. But yeah, you would get these same lines where you play b4, you trade off, bishop g4, bishop e3, the knight reroutes, castles, bishop e7, and you get these kind of variations where the only difference is you don't have an open f file. That is the only difference, so it is slightly worse than the French defense one, but it's playable, it's completely playable. You'll probably want to play bishop d3 at some point and try to remove this knight. You'll want to centralize your rook, and there are a lot of things that black can still fight for. Again, you don't have to play like this. I don't recommend you play this a3 line. You can even play, I think you can play castles here, right? There's some variation where you can sacrifice some pawns. I remember I played this from the black side in an over the board game and got absolutely wrecked because I didn't know the theory. But yeah, I would say that, against the Caro-Kann, I really enjoyed playing against it. Again, there are ways that you can make it interesting for white no matter what black does. I would say, across the board with e4, there is no real way that black can make it boring. There is no boring anything in e4 repertoires. That's a spoiler for what is to come, but the Caro-Kann is not an exception to that. I see a lot of people saying, oh, Caro-Kann is the most boring opening in the world. You clearly haven't played d4. You clearly haven't had to play in some of the boring d4 positions that black can draw out. This is a very, very attacking position compared to what you might get in some d4 games. So this is absolutely not a problem, not something that I disliked playing against at all. It was very, very fun, these Caro-Kann games, and I had a lot of success with the advanced Caro-Kann. I would like to learn the fantasy. This is an opening that I've been wanting to learn for a long time, so, if you don't want to play the advanced, the fantasy variation is a very, 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 very attacking opening that you might want to try out as well. I don't know the theory to it yet, but I plan on doing it eventually. What's crazy is, look at the Lichess database down here. Do you see this win rate with white? 56% win rate? Are you kidding me? Yeah, okay, maybe that should be your motivation to go and learn the fantasy variation, because that's a ridiculous win rate. But enough of that. I didn't play that in this 30-day period. If I do this for another 30 days, maybe I'll learn that, but we can move on to a different opening for now. Now we can look at the Scandinavian, which is one of my favorite openings to come up against with the white side, and that might be confusing to a lot of people because I've heard a lot of people think that the Scandinavian is a very boring opening. So it starts off the e4, d5, e takes, and queen takes, and a lot of people think this is very boring, and I understand why. It's because black goes for a very, very passive setup with no central control, kind of similar to what we mentioned in the Philidor, but there is a lot of ways to make it very interesting. I don't think I have played a whole bunch of games with the Scandinavian. It actually hasn't come up too much, which is surprising considering I know a lot of people that play the Scandinavian. I think I just got unlucky. So, my win rates for the Scandinavian are not so, reliable. So I recommend this move knight c3. Players on Lichess play queen d8 and queen a5. If queen d8, I just had 0 games against queen d8, so we won't even look at it. But the kind of ideas, go hand in hand if they would play queen a5, which I had 1 win and 1 draw against. This is against players over 2100 elo as well. So I like going for this d4 move, and there is one important thing that I would really recommend when playing against the Scandinavian, and it's to delay this knight f3 move. Black is just waiting for you to play knight f3. If you're a Scandinavian player, you are just waiting for someone to play knight f3 so you can pin it. That's what you want to do. That is literally, as soon as knight f3 is played, they're going to pin it. So we want to delay it if possible. After a move like c6, for example, we can play bishop d2. We're not actually threatening anything here. By the way, a lot of people like playing the Leonhardt gambit in some of these lines. I don't really love it. I think that the Leonhardt is kind of, it's a little bit, what's the word for it? It's kind of just one of those gambits that you don't really have anything. You're just kind of hoping that your opponent messes up. But bishop d2, you really want to bait this move, bishop f5. It is so fun to play against Scandinavian setups when they play bishop f5. And this is something that I kind of figured out for myself. A lot of this repertoire was just me messing around on an analysis board, reviewing games, and finding these cool variations to play. Bishop f5 allows you to play g4, and you just absolutely uncork mayhem on the game. I mean, the engine even wants you to play bishop e6. I mean, who wants to play that? I mean, locking in everything. But, you know, most people will play bishop g6. You can see the win rate here. White really likes these positions. You'll play something like f4, locking them in. They have to play e6 here, but a lot of people play e6, but then you can even play something like h4. I know the theory here is to play queen e2. If they take here, you'll play rook c1, and suddenly they are not in such good shape. They should actually sacrifice the piece. If they go back, you're going to play this, and suddenly they are stuck because they cannot take, because they are pinned, and you get so much activity so fast if they play bishop f5. So if you take anything from this video, take away this, because I teach all of my students that play e4 that's, you know, trying to bait this move of bishop f5, which is a very, very, very common mistake, even at such a high level. Maybe not in this specific position. Maybe they'll play knight f3 first, but even if they play bishop g4 at some stage later, you can play f3, and you really just want to castle long in the Scandinavian. That's kind of what I like to do. We'll look at a line that doesn't involve, you know, this g4 business. You know, if they play bishop g4 here, we can play f3, they can go back. We could play queen e2 now. You could also play h4 and try to trap some things, but queen e2 and castling long, and you're gonna have a lot of fun in these kind of positions. I don't really understand why people think that these Scandinavian positions are really boring. You get to castle long and you get to just attack his king, no matter what, his or her king. And I don't know, these positions are super fun to play. I didn't have any problems against the Scandinavian, and I really, really enjoyed playing against it with the white pieces. In saying that, the next opening that we have, you might have noticed it is a little bit missing from this video, is not one of my favorite openings to play against. The Sicilian. I'm gonna keep it so short. Like, if you could see my full screen, I've not even put anything into this Lichess study. I play it, and you know, I didn't even play badly against the Sicilian. I had 7 wins and 8 losses against the Sicilian with knight f3, and then at some point I kind of got bored of it, and I started playing knight c3, and then I got 3 wins and 3 losses against with knight c3. I think the problem is there's just too much theory. For someone that's like kind of put together this makeshift repertoire where I'm filling a lot of gaps from my d4 repertoire, the only thing that I really am very confident in that I have studied specifically for this repertoire is the Ruy Lopez. I would have to invest just a whole bunch of time into learning a Sicilian defense repertoire with the white side, because there are just so many responses black can try, and I think I just got confused in a lot of cases. So none of my wins or losses were really anything to do with my opening theory for the Sicilian. It was just due to my middle game and end game technique kind of carrying me to wins in a lot of cases. And it was very clear that no matter if I played knight f3 or knight c3, I kind of got this result of I wasn't better than these 2100s. I was at least equal to them. I was winning as many games as I was losing. And this is why I said, you know, the refutation for the Ruy Lopez is just to play the Sicilian defense. I think that the Sicilian defense is such a great opening against 1e4. It makes it very difficult to play against. I think if you are wanting to play e4, this should be your biggest hurdle. This should be what you spend the most time kind of figuring out, trying to play against the Sicilian defense and finding something that not only is consistent, you know, you don't want to play have to learn all of this different theory. You don't want to have to, you know, memorize hundreds of opening lines. You would like to learn something that is kind of systematic in its own ways, something that is intuitive to you. But yeah, it's just a very difficult opening to play against. This is 100% the biggest red flag in any e4 repertoire, is figuring out what you want to play against the Sicilian. Of course, people that are watching this video that have played e4 for all of their lives, you're gonna kind of maybe not understand this as much as somebody that has just started playing e4 understands, because you probably have something that you favor already, something, your weapon against the Sicilian defense. I don't have that yet. Let me know in the comments below what your weapon against the Sicilian is. I just don't have one. I was kind of just messing around playing random things. I knew that if I started off playing knight c3, you guys would get mad at me in the comments saying this wasn't the real Sicilian. So I did try to play a lot of, I played almost 20 games with knight f3. We get knight c6, d4, takes, and then I just ran into all sorts of problems where there's just so many responses, and no matter how many responses I kind of studied, not only was I not good at all of them, but they're also, like, I think I would just have to spend so much more time studying than I actually did to get any decent results against the Sicilian defense. So again, if I did this video again and played e4 for 30 more days, I would have to study the Sicilian so much more than I did, because you truly cannot explain how theoretical it is for the white side. I think not so theoretical for the black side, because black is often calling the shots depending on what white plays. So black kind of gets to choose what happens, but in saying that, white needs to just learn so much theory. There's just too many variations. White has to learn a lot of theory, and I didn't really expect that going into it, how theoretical it would be. I would say the Sicilian defense from the black side didn't seem too theoretical. When I learned it for black, I chose a repertoire that wasn't too theoretical, but from the white side, it is probably the most theoretical opening that I have ever played. It's very confusing. Again, I didn't get much. I think my wins came from kind of just my overall chess skill, not my opening knowledge, and I definitely struggled with it. We'll get into a game that I played with e4 next. I know there are a couple of openings that I didn't go over in today's video, but I thought that they were openings that I either didn't play, so I didn't really have anything to weigh in on, or they just happen too rarely. Like there are some openings, if we go all the way back, like, yeah, I could have put the Owens defense in, but like, would anyone care if I didn't? Probably not. So yeah, that's all the variations that we're gonna look at, and we can jump into a game that I played with e4 that I thought would be cool to share with you guys. I know I said that we would look at a full game at the start of the video. I said I'd look through one of the coolest games that I've ever played. The video is getting kind of long, and a full game review would kind of be not so fun, I imagine. So I wanted to pick a different game. This was a game that I played at 2,177, so this is definitely, a game against a very good chess player. It wasn't like I was versing some 900 elo and got this game, where I played the best move I've ever played in chess. So I've been playing chess for over 5 years now, I think, and in 30 days of playing 1e4, I get just the best move that I've ever played in a chess game. The sequence starts off with Queen h5, which is not the best move I've ever played. This is a brilliant move because it threatens checkmate in 1. Not actually that brilliant. But we get this sequence of h6, rook f3, knight a7, knight c5. We can see I actually missed, what did I miss here? I missed the move h4, which kind of traps the bishop a little bit here. I play knight c5, clocking up the position, and I play rook a f1. We're kind of skipping through this a little bit just because we are getting to the most brilliant move that I've ever played. If you guys keep up with my community tab, you would have seen this move, and I quizzed you guys on it. Not many people found the move in the position. After h4 and bishop d8, it is mate in 6. When I initially analyzed this game, Stockfish didn't even find my move. Queen g6, sacrificing the queen, threatening checkmate. There is nothing you can do. If you take the queen, I'm going to take here on the other side. Looks like you're out of trouble. h5, and I'm gonna checkmate you with a pawn in the most brutal way that I have ever checkmated someone. So yeah, I thought it was funny. You could, even if you were really nasty about it, you could play a5, and you could do like this if you wanted to get a mate in 2, so you could even flex on them a little bit more and sacrifice a rook in the process. But yeah, I thought that this would be a cool thing to include. Kind of funny how I swapped to e4 for literally 30 days, and I get the best move that I've ever played in a chess game. But yeah, I wanted to show you guys not only my experience and the variations that I had in e4 over the last 30 days, but also kind of one of the highlights. There were also some games that I played, a whole bunch of brilliant moves. I had a lot of really attacking dynamic games, but the video is getting a little bit long and I didn't want to bore you guys with a whole game review. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if you guys would like me to do this for any other openings, or if you would like me to do this for another 30 days with e4 and see how I progress, knowing what I know now and seeing your comments and seeing what I should improve upon my e4 repertoire. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys think, if you would like to see some more videos just like this one. But apart from that, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.